Oh, okay. Welcome everybody to the second English episode of the Sex Love Consciousness podcast. And today I'm here with the amazing Natalie Martin. And I just wanted to ask Natalie to introduce herself because I forgot to ask her for her bio. And maybe it's even nice if you just tell us what you
Yeah,
do. And
for sure. Hi,
yeah.
thanks for having me. So I'm Nat. I go by the name Nat mostly. I'm an author. I write women's fiction novels, and I work in women's empowerment. So to do that, it's usually through coaching, mindset coaching, empowerment coaching, and I'm halfway through a coaching program to help coach women through their menstrual cycle as well. So bringing some menstruality and finding empowerment that way. And I also teach yoga as well. So
Oh,
quite
I love it.
different, a big package of different things.
Yeah, but they still interweave so beautifully, actually. And I want to like dive into the piece of you. You started saying that you're an author, and I think because I'm kind of following and knowing you for a couple of years now or something, and I think there was a time when you even said you don't really identify as an author anymore.
Yeah.
So you went from being an author to all these other things, and now you're back to being an author. Like
Yeah.
how?
It's kind of crazy. It's weird when I think about it now,
Yeah.
but essentially so when I quit my job back in two, 2014, I left my corporate job and I started being a self-published author while I was traveling, and this then led to me getting a publishing contract and being like a real author,
Wow.
that where I had contracts to fulfill and stuff. And about 3 years ago, I wrote my third book, and at the same time, I published that book. I think it was on a Saturday, and then on the Monday, I flew to India for a teacher training, which was the second yoga teacher training that I'd done, and that teacher training just opened my eyes in such a big way. So when I got back, everything was yoga. I didn't have time to write. I didn't want to write. I didn't see the point in writing books about love. I mean, I don't just write about romantic love. I write about relationships, but I didn't see the point. I was just yoga, 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 reading everything yoga, sleeping it, breathing it.
Wow.
And so for 3 years, I didn't identify as an author because I wasn't writing anything. And although I still had like ideas bubbling away, and so at the beginning of this year, when the lockdown happened, I started writing again. And
And what made you feel inspired to start writing again?
well, I think I had time.
Uh-huh.
I think I had time again. So while, for the last 3 years, I'd been teaching and I'd been working alongside that. And so there really just was not time to
Hmm.
get into this right flow and, to sit and plot out a book again. And honestly, I was scared as well, because the third book was self-published and it
Mm.
didn't do as well as the first two, which had become bestsellers. And I kind of felt a little bit like
Wow.
a failure. And
Wow, I feel honored to talk to a best-selling book author.
I think that's why I feel so strange when I look back, because it feels like I did that classic thing that most people do. They make a mistake or something doesn't work out the way that they think, and then they invent a story that they're
Mm.
not good at
Hmm.
whatever it was that they did because they made this mistake or they had this failure. So I spent 3 years just kind of, I don't identify as an author because I'm not teaching author. I'm not writing books, but by teaching and having all my focus on yoga, it was like defending this idea that I'm not an author because I wasn't giving enough time. And then suddenly Corona came and I couldn't work and teaching was all online. And I thought, well, I'm just going to start for myself. And I just told Simon, like, yeah, I'm just going to start for myself. I'm not going to contact my agent or anything. Just, if it takes me 10 years, it takes me 10 years.
Wow.
And I just started. And then the more I started, the more I kind of thought, actually, I really miss this. And
Mm.
in a session with my old mentor, I just voiced it for the first time, that I was like, actually, I really want to go back to where I was 5 years ago, where I'm writing, but still being able to incorporate all this new things that I'm doing with self-development. And literally 2 weeks later, my old editor from my publisher emailed me very randomly and was like, just wanted to see if you're working on anything new. And I was like, kinda. And I think within the space of 6 weeks, I had a new publishing contract. So I've got a two-book contract now. And that's what I'm spending most of my time on. So it's very strange for me to think that there was a time when I really denied this, and I just felt like it wasn't a worthy thing to do next to like higher spiritual practices. So yeah, crazy.
I feel like sometimes yoga brings this with it. When you start diving deeper into yoga, you say goodbye to all these earthly things and you're like, now I'm only spiritual.
It's so
And
true.
I can't deal with any of the stuff I did anymore. And yeah,
There's a lot of I think it's one of those things that when I speak with other people about it, they're very shocked that there is, yoga from the outside looks like it's just all peace and love and light. And people, I think, find it hard to believe that there are yoga teachers out there who maybe are coming at it from a place of their own traumas. So they're, maybe giving that trauma to their students, or that there's this, I can't think of the English word or even the German word right now, but there's this kind of snobbery sometimes about what yoga is and what yoga isn't. And, that you should then be vegan and you should be, I don't know, like this super Strahlungsmensch or something. And I really kind of bought into that for a little while. And of course, it's, it's not enough to just do a yoga teacher training and then teach. You have to constantly learn. It's like, it does take up everything. But I find it very sad now that I had denied this thing that I love to do, of looking at human relationships and dissecting them and dealing with things that are very much part of the human experience. And actually, for me, it's a massive part of spirituality, but that it kind of felt like it was not important because it wasn't yoga.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like in the yoga world there's like this addiction to just becoming enlightened and transcending anything that's got nothing to do with what we think enlightenment is. And then like on my journey I just found out nobody really knows what is enlightenment. Like we sit there in the yoga philosophy classes and talk about it and philosoph about it, but we don't really fucking know. And I think we know when we live. And when we accept that we are human for a reason, and when we start making the most out of it, then I feel like we're getting glimpses of what enlightenment actually is.
Yeah, for sure. I couldn't agree anymore. But yeah.
Such a funny.
I decided that I didn't, I just started to look at other people and like how other people really apply themselves to yoga, and it is their whole life. And I think for me, I had to really admit, like, what is it that I love about yoga? What do I get from the practice? What do I get from teaching? Who am I teaching? And, I realized, like, I'm not teaching people who are in some deep spiritual journey, and I'm not teaching people who want to become like a super yogi. I'm teaching people who want to feel better about themselves and who want to understand themselves a little bit and feel good in their bodies. And that's what I love about yoga as well. Of course, there's all the philosophy and stuff. And so I really had to just have a word with myself and say, well, do I want to be this massive super yogi? Actually, no, I don't. And I love that there are people out there who do that. That's their calling, but it's not mine. And that was really, like, freeing. It was like, okay, then I don't have to pretend that it's like, enlightened being, and I'm just a normal person who enjoys yoga, and I enjoy sharing it with other people. So
that is so liberating. To be like, okay, I'm still a good person if I don't go on my mat every single day. I'm still good.
That's something I say to people all the time. And they're like, should I be practicing every day? And I say, well, I don't. Like some days, this morning I did a workout instead. Like you know, like there's so many misconceptions out there about what yoga is and how you should practice it and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided that I don't want to be part of that conversation. I don't want to become an authority on what yoga is and what it isn't.
Yeah, yeah, it's so beautiful if you just pick out what we need.
Yeah.
But so I'm interested about the writing thing again, because like questions that come up for me is how did you first start? You said you were working in a corporate job and then you became a freelance writer. Like, did you actually ever study writing, or you just said I want to write? Like, because I want to write a book, you know, and I'm like having all these. Yeah, the wish, the idea is there, and I just lack a little bit of determination, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And also the like the idea that the whole thing is just, it feels so huge to write a book. So
Yeah,
and I know that basically, you know, in my email signature I have written that phrase, 1,000-mile journey, you begin with a single step. So like I'm pretty aware of that idea.
but still.
Yeah.
Well, no, I've never studied writing formally ever. I've never taken a writing course in my life. So I just am someone who I always loved books. I always loved reading. I loved the English homework where we would have to write a story, or, you know, like anything creative writing wise, I just always really enjoyed. And I think I probably had started like 10 books. I think I would just get bored sometimes, and then I would open up my laptop and I would write a little bit, and it would never be more than like, I don't know, maybe about 100 or 200 words. And then I would leave it. And then sometimes at the time I used to be really into like proper chick lit books. Like, you know, there's this like she usually worked in like PR or marketing in London, and she would be like looking for a guy, and then she'd find the guy, and then, you know, like it's very typical easy beach read stuff. And sometimes I'd get to the end and think, well, I could write something like that. And then I was on holiday with my ex-boyfriend in Santorini, which is a really beautiful Greek island where lots of people get engaged, because it's that, you know, when you think of Greece with the blue domes and the white, so that's where it is. And I was on the beach, and someone in a restaurant behind proposed to his girlfriend, and, you know, so there was this like, oh, and I thought, I wonder what would happen if she had said no. And then I was like, oh, that would make a great idea for a book. And I just started writing on my phone, like in my notes app on my phone. And I continued writing it when we got home back to England. And I think the thing that really changed for me, and I don't know how I found it, there used to be a really good writers community online that was run by HarperCollins, and anyone could upload a book, or, you know, chapter by chapter of what they were writing. And there were so many people on this website who they had writing qualifications, or they were like already self-published authors, and you would get a lot of peer reviews, and people would, you know, like, I started to upload it anonymously, and then I would get people commenting like, oh my gosh, this is great, what's happening next, when's the next chapter coming? And so I had this kind of like, oh, okay, this drive to do it. And I got a lot of great writing advice on there as well. Like, I don't know that going on a writing course would have told me as much as what I got from that site, because there's some really, truly fantastic people on there who know about the skills of writing and showing emotions, instead of just simply telling that so and so is angry. Well, what does that look like? How would you write that? And so basically I just was using the momentum of people who were enjoying the book, and also at the same time making friends who I still to this day today I'm writing with on Facebook. And basically the point of this website was that it was like a massive slush pile. So instead of editors having to sift through loads of book submissions, they made this website where people would upload their book, and you as a user would have a virtual bookshelf with 5 different books, and the book that was on, or the 5 books that were on the most bookshelves, would go to a HarperCollins editor for review at the end of every month. And so you're kind of climbing up this chart system, and Together Apart, which was my debut novel, got into the top 5, and it had this review, and so I think that, and it was a really good review as well. So I think that gave me the kind of the kind of feeling that even though I don't know what I'm doing, because I'm not qualified, I don't have a degree, I just read books, that actually I can potentially do this, and and so I self-published it in the end, and that's where it all started, really.
Wow. And is it, well, I have so many questions. I don't know if, so I will go with this one. Like, another thing that comes up for me, if I think of writing my own book, it feels so intimidating because it's so huge, and it literally feels like, can I create this? Like, who am I to create this? Have you ever experienced those kind of thoughts, and how did you deal with them? Like, because I think there's a lot of people who actually would like to do something like this.
You know what? Like, there's a running joke in the writers community that like everyone wants to be a writer. So, you know, and it's true, whenever you tell someone like, oh, I'm a writer, I'm an author, they're like, oh, I'd love to be an author. I've got this idea for a book. And the difference is really just that most of them don't start it, and then even fewer of them finish it. I definitely had those feelings of, who am I? Because, you know, I'm just a secretary, or at the time I was working in HR, but I've never studied writing. I don't know, my grammar's not that good and everything else. And I think there was two things. There was, at this time, it was the rise of self-published books in general, like the Kindle had just, I don't know how long it had been around for, but in my mind at that time, it was still quite a big new thing. And it was also the time when 50 Shades of Grey came out, which I do believe was also a self-published book in the beginning. And I was just reading these books and thinking, but if they could do it, then surely I can do it.
Fuck yeah.
I don't think it's a bad thing, but there's sometimes things happen where you want to do something and you see someone else doing it, and to your mind, it's not that good. It doesn't mean that you're like a bad person. You just think, well, I know that I could do better. And I just thought, well, you know, if they can do it, then so can I. And I had, or two friends actually, who also were publishing erotica around that time. Cool. So it was like, you know, erotica was just everywhere. And one of them now is like huge with Penguin under her real name. And the other one is still, she's not writing erotica anymore, but she's also a published author. And I was seeing them doing it and just wiping the floor with the charts, and people were just loving it. And I was like, okay, well, if they can try it, then I can try it. And I told myself I'm going to do it under a pen name in case it doesn't work, so that I don't have my name on the internet. But then there was so much work that went into it that I was like, actually, I'm going to put my name on it. Like, I'm going to put behind it. So I think using other people as your motivation is such a good thing, because it's a fact, there are people who are out there doing what you wish you could do without the qualifications, without, like, you know, any massive testimonials to put behind them. And in some cases, with, I'm going to say, a bit less skill. I don't mean it in the bad way, but I mean that you could probably do it better. Or different, and because it's you doing it, that different would be better for some other people. So I just kind of thought, okay, come on, if they're doing it, then you have to try. Otherwise, why write a book? Why have like gone through all the heartache to get to the end? And it was a book that it was hard to write. It's about a breakup. I was just ending my 10-year relationship while writing it. I actually finished writing it probably about a month after we'd split up. And I just thought, well, what am I going to do with it otherwise? It's just going to sit on my hard drive. No. Get it out there.
Wow. And how do you self-publish a book? Like, this is a more technical question.
It's actually really easy.
I'm just, how do you do that?
No, it's really easy.
I'm collecting information for myself here.
For sure. So I'm a little bit out of the game now. I mean, I self-published the last book in 2017. There's a book, I'm sure that it's probably been updated. It's called Self-Printed. The woman who wrote it, I believe, is called Catherine Ryan Howard. And it's like a Bible, because it tells you everything from how to format your Word document or your Pages document or whatever, so that you can upload it to Google Play, to Apple, to Amazon. And it really, and when I say it walks you through it, I mean with screenshots of what will be on your screen. Also how to do the paperbacks, which you can do print on demand with Amazon as well. How to format it, and then also how to create a newsletter, how to set up a Twitter page or whatever, you know, it was Twitter back then, probably now it's other things. So this, you know, obviously you have to find someone to edit it. I actually have got a blog post with all of this information, which I'm happy to link for you, so that you can make sure that what you're putting out is professional, because it's still a book that you want people to pay for. And you find a cover designer and all this kind of stuff. It's just you learn as you're going. So you know, when you've got a book that is telling you everything that you need to know, it's not scary. It's not easy. It takes a while because it's a lot of concentration and you're really, you know, like in your computer until your eyes go square. But it's not difficult. It's something that you don't need to pay anyone else for. If you want to self-publish, the only things that I would suggest paying for are people to edit your book and to make the cover. Everything else you can do yourself.
Sounds really doable.
It is. I think it's just one of those, it is a big thing. It's like writing a whole book. It's a lot. But as you said, it starts with one step. And believe me, like right now, I have a book. I have a very, very, very tight deadline. It's the quickest time that I will have had 5 months to write this book, which is a really short space of time. And there's some days when I'm like, oh, I know what the story is. I've got the whole outline done, but still some days it's hard for me to come and sit and then like get the words out. And the only way that you get the words out is to get a word out. So if you want to start writing, then you open up your Pages or your Word document and you just write something, and then the next word and the next word. And it doesn't have to be great. It's just a case of getting out what's in here to here, and it builds. The word count builds, the pages build, and then at some point you're in it. You know, the story's underway. So.
Exciting. I love it.
It's a great practice. It creates a lot of creativity. It's just letting your mind work and dream up things. It's a very special thing. So, you know, and I think that everybody can write, you know, it's maybe just a case of finding what it is that you're writing, and but I think that it's something that everybody can do. Everyone can draw, everyone can write.
Yeah, so you said dreaming up, the thing that's bringing me like to the next point. I hear you speaking about this on social media recently as well, like basically just living your dreams. I don't know your exact words, but I think you're standing for this as well, to just trust more in yourself and in your wishes. Can I say it like that?
Yeah.
And it's something I also believe in, and I really, really like how you're putting this out there, because I think there's so many people who say like, yeah, I want to do this, and I would love to do what you do, and oh, you have such a great life, and then you ask them, why don't you do it? Oh yeah, I have a job, I have this, I can't, da 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 da, and like. I imagine even that you can relate even better, because I was like a traveling hippie for just when I left high school. I never went into like this normal lifestyle. So for me, it was always like, I could never be fucked to do that.
Wow, yeah.
Or like, I wasn't always like full hippie, but I knew that I didn't want to live the life that society wanted me to. So but you said you worked in a corporate job, and so you have like this, you probably had a little bit of the mindset, I need security, I need monthly salary and all this stuff.
For real. For real.
Oh, what happened?
So I worked for, I would say, from the age of 19 until 29. For 10 years, there or thereabouts in the corporate world. And I started as a secretary, and then I trained in human resources. And so the last 7 years, I worked in human resources for London Underground. And it was a very, basically, I was part of the management team that negotiated with the trade unions. So it was like a real, and it was great fun. It was like, 9 to 5, happy hour in the evening, Friday nights out, and all this kind of stuff. Like, it was great. But for me, and actually, I don't think that I ever thought about traveling or living any kind of different life, because I didn't know that any kind of different life existed. As I think about it, I don't think I knew anyone who went traveling or anything. Basically, I got to it after I left my boyfriend of 10 years. I decided that I wanted to learn French, just because I'd always liked the language. And I started to meet up with French people in London and just practice French. And I got myself a French boyfriend and was in a long distance thing for about 6 months. Bad idea that was. But from being in this kind of place where I was listening to French, I was watching French TV, all this kind of stuff, I decided I want to test my French skills, and I want to go and spend the summer in France. And I think that was the first year of me leaving my 10-year relationship. And I'd started to realize that I wasn't made to be this traditional kind of housewife, which I was in this relationship. It was very just, you go to work, you come home. I was the one who was cooking, I was the one who was cleaning. It was all very like predictable and safe. And I'd, decided I want to go on a girls' holiday. I'd never had a girls' holiday. I wanted to go to a gallery by myself. Like, some of this stuff was so small. I want to be able to eat in a restaurant by myself, right? And so I thought, okay, I'm going to go to France. And I got into this workaway, little bit like woofing thing. And I had...
But how did you even hear about that? Because that to me is already like pretty out there.
Because I decided that I wanted to go somewhere and I wanted to see something else. And I at the time, I didn't have enough money to travel, because I told myself I needed like 10,000 euros to travel. And I think it was, don't ask me, I don't know why.
Well, I think that's what a lot of people think.
It's so crazy. I think I was getting to a point as well with my job where it was a great job and I got paid so much, way over what I should have been paid, and the benefits were great. But I was getting to this stage where I was quite bored. Like, if I needed to make a change, so the next step would have been like, to go up the ladder a little bit. But to do that, I would have had to study. And I was sure that I didn't want to study. And so I thought, well, what else could I do? If I leave this job and I go to another job, it's going to be like a massive drop in finances, which I can't, afford living in London and so on. And I thought maybe I could travel, in a very like not at all backpacker way, because I wasn't at all a backpackering person. And so I looked into different ways of traveling, and I came across the idea of volunteering. And because I was worried, like maybe I would be alone, maybe I wouldn't meet anyone who could speak English. I'd never even eaten alone in a restaurant by myself. So, it kind of felt like a safe way to do it. And I had this amazing summer. I had a week by myself in Nice, which was really the first time that I'd eaten dinner by myself in a restaurant, where I was really alone. I didn't know anyone. And then I had an amazing time living out in the countryside, and just working on a big piece of land and learning how to garden and all this kind of stuff. And I met these, it's such a crazy story. I was at the market and I had a hand drum, and I'd never had a hand drum before.
Oh,
like,
it's kind of life-changing.
It was like literally life-changing, because I was like, what is that? And I followed the sound, and there was this like group of 4 musicians playing in the market, a little bit kind of like Eastern Indian music. And I'm not someone who just talks to random people. I am now, but I wasn't then. But for some reason, I stuck around afterwards, and then I went up to them and I was talking to them, and it turned out that one of them knew the woman who I was staying with. And so I went to a few of their concerts, and they were like, yeah, you know, we're in Europe, we busk in the summer, and then in the winters we go to Goa and Thailand, and we just make music wherever we go. And I was like, wow, that's some life, you know. And when I went back to England, before I went back, they were like, you should totally come with us to Goa. It's be amazing. And I literally said, don't be stupid, I've got a job. I've got bills, I've got credit card debt. Just up and leave. And I never wanted to go to India anyway. It was like the least interesting place in the planet for me. And so I just, you know, said, yeah, we'll keep in touch. We connected on Facebook. I went back to London. I had the weekend in London, and then I went back to work on Monday morning. And I walked into the office, and I think I sat at my desk for about 20 minutes, and I just cried. I just thought, I can't do this. Like,
I get chills.
It just felt so, you know, like I literally just spent 6 weeks in the sunshine, eating food from the garden, not having to do anything or be anyone apart from who I was. And yeah, I cried and I said, I can't do this. And I asked my department boss, like, can I have a sabbatical year so that I can just travel and, you know, kind of figure out what I want to do? And he said, well, you know, you've just had the summer off, so no. And so I just said, okay, then, well, I have to leave.
Wow. I really get chills.
And then I wrote to this guy, one of the musicians, and I was like, oh my God, I think I'm going to come to Goa with you. And he was like, yeah, great. So I literally booked a one-way flight. And this is like all, I've realized now that I do have the capacity sometimes to be very spontaneous. And this was one of the first times that I can really, really remember this feeling of not being afraid, of just listening to my intuition and saying, then I'm not staying here. And I literally booked my ticket, didn't even have a visa yet, and had no money saved at all, like none. And went home and told my mum that I've given my notice for my job, and in 3 months' time I'm going to be going to Goa. She was just like,
what did your mom say?
She was just like, are you sure this is a good idea? You know, my mom also has a bit of adventure in her, but
that's a nice comment,
yeah,
though.
She and now she just knows that I do these random things sometimes. So it was a very scary thing, but at the same time, I had, I think that was in September that I handed my notice in. I'd already decided that I wanted to self-publish my book. And so she was like, well, what are you going to do? And I was like, well, I'm going to self-publish my book. And as for the rest, I don't know yet. I'm just going to go and see what happens. And I saved money over 3 months, and then I left. And through
that's so epic.
Yeah, and like you then meet people, you see that there's another way of living. And as I said, I self-published my book from Arambol in Goa. I was sitting in Dreamland Cafe. I remember it because my best friend was flying from the UK to Goa to spend her birthday with me, and I literally was sitting there with like my panini and my peanut butter shake, and I pressed publish, and then I was a self-published author.
Woohoo! Made in Goa.
Wild. Yeah. Wild.
Oh my God. I never actually heard your story like this. To me, it really sounds kind of magical that you went, like, this is a story for a book in itself. Like the corporate lady from London goes to move on a farm in France and hears this magical hung drum music and is just sold on another life.
It's like an eat, pray, love thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was great because because I was not someone who I wasn't I like, now I feel like I am like that, but at the time I never thought I was someone who would travel really in that kind of way. I loved holidays. But like, you know, this idea of living out of a backpack and stuff was just not something, like, as I said, I didn't know it existed. So I had no expectations when I left. Like when I got to go, I did not know what to expect. I had no idea about anything. And so it meant that I was really just somehow open to everything as well, I guess.
Wow. And then Goa magic unfolded itself.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my God. Yeah, I love this story. And I like now I'm seeing you working on like women's empowerment stuff, and you're just diving deeper into soulpreneurship and basically following your heart. And how are you supporting others in doing that as well?
Yeah, so it's funny because now I can say with my books as well, because that's what I write about. It's relationships and, you know, learning to just follow what is true to you. So although I'm writing about fiction and, you know, it falls under the realms of potentially romance, I do feel like there's a lot of wisdom in there. I'm not quite writing Paulo Coelho style fables yet, but that's, you know, maybe something
coming up.
So right now primarily it's through coaching. So I work as I guess I would say I'm quite intuitive with the coaching. Most of the women who I'm working with are either coming towards or in the middle of big life transitions. So, you know, like ending relationships, moving back to their hometown, wanting to start their own business. So they're kind of at this crossroads. And so we do a lot of, for sure, there's a lot of unpacking to be done, because there's just so much fear when you're at like this kind of crossroads. You don't know what's going to come next or how you should move on. So there's a lot of mindset work in there for sure. And I think what I love about that is it's something that you can see. Sometimes you can see when something clicks in someone, and it's not that you're giving them the wisdom, it's that they've got the wisdom inside. It's just the way that you guide them. So I do this. I also use human design as well, because I love human design. It's mind-blowing. It just totally blew me open.
So good.
And so I share this as well, because I do think that it's just so important to be authentic to who you are. And I think for me, the biggest part about human design that makes sense is this making decisions in a way that works for you. And I learned about this. So I'm a projector and I have splenic authority, which means I work on my intuition. And whenever I think about those key moments, like stopping in that market and, you know, handing in my notice, or when I think about how I met my boyfriend, which was also just totally random, and going down a road where I never ever go, in the back road in Goa somewhere, like, you know, there's moments when you make decisions that affect the rest of your life. And I think for me as a coach, when I can understand what your human design is, then I can also package the language to make you or to help you understand that you need to make decisions that work according to you yourself. And this is, I think, been one of the biggest, most important tools. Yes, it's great to know which design type you are and everything, but this one thing, especially because the women who I coach are going through transitions, they need to make decisions. It's so empowering when they kind of get this like, oh my gosh, kind of moments. So yeah, and as I mentioned, I'm now about halfway through menstrual cycle awareness coaching, which is just, it's given me so much life right now. It's I can't even yeah, it's just mind-blowing, and it's something that has changed my life so much, just from understanding how I work, what the rhythms of my body are, the rhythms of my energy, my emotions. And this is like it's just huge. So I've already started to kind of weave it into some coaching sessions, and also into how I offer my yoga as well. And I think that's something that is quite soon going to be taking more and more space in what I do, because it's just like, I think as a woman, or as a person who bleeds, it's just it's such an intrinsic part of you. It's, you know, it's just as fundamental as breathing. So yeah, it's huge. I love it.
Wow. I feel like I'm just getting some ideas about doing a separate episode just about menstrual
Yeah. Oh, there's so
cycles.
much.
Yeah.
There's so much to go into with that.
Such a topic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are the biggest ways. And of course there's yoga as well. You know, I really love teaching in a way that's fun. Of course you work a little bit, you maybe sweat a little bit, but it's always, you know, for me, there's been so many moments off of the yoga mat where I've realized like this inner strength or this other perspective, and I can really directly, not translate, but I can really directly see the link between that decision, or that, you know, whatever is happening in life, and the lesson that I learned in yoga. So yeah, yoga will always have a very special place inside, because it can just be so profound, the way that you learn about who you are and what your boundaries are, and that even if something feels really impossible, like the first time you try a headstand, for example, it's just, you know, once you've built the strength and you know the kind of the tweaks and what to do, then it's not so difficult, really. So yeah, I'm really happy for that.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, yoga is such a good thing to be a partner in life, and I think I just see some people getting really rigid about, I only can do yoga and I can't look at any other life enhancing practices.
It's sad, but you know, I think
I was so much one of them, yeah, but I noticed it doesn't help me, because I literally thought I need to do yoga every day, and if I'm like this really good yogi and I only think good thoughts and I'm really conscious of how I am and all this stuff, maybe then one day I will be enlightened, and until then life is going to be pretty tough, and that's just not how it worked for me. So actually that's where tantric philosophy came in for me, and did the job of applying it more to life.
Yeah, I think that's also what really drew me in with Tantra as well, because I feel like, you know, like when you first start with yoga, it can feel so amazing. And, you know, obviously because you're just creating space and building more strength and everything, but also for your mind, for your emotions and everything as well. And so we are humans, and humans thrive on routine, whether we like to admit that or not. And so it's very easy to fall into this pattern of, well, yoga makes me feel good, so I need to do it every day, and then I need to do that same kind of yoga because I know that that works for me. And, you know, and then in my case, I really started to get injured a lot, because I have such unstable joints and great flexibility, which looks fantastic, but, you know, actually means that I have back pain almost every day. You know, and so I had to learn that it's not enough to just get on your mat and do like a vinyasa class every day. You also have to, you know, use weights and use your body weight, and, you know, have full range of movement and stuff like that. And so I really learned just from so many trips to the physio, and sometimes actually being like stuck on the floor and having to get my boyfriend to pick me up, because my back is just like, my hips are just seized. And so, you know, it can be really unhealthy. You have to practice mindfully. And this, you know, hashtag yoga every damn day kind of thing, it's like, well, actually no.
Yeah.
Don't, you know, like Don't do it every day. You can't.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what you define as yoga, but definitely not asana yoga every damn
Yeah,
day.
exactly. It's, it's for me, and our yoga teacher in India, he always said, like, yoga can be whatever you want it to be. It was, if you want to have your version of yoga being eating ice cream, then it can be eating ice cream.
Yes, fuck
It
yeah.
can be whatever you want it to be, as long as it's what's bringing you to yourself. And
Yeah.
it can be dance, it can be walking the dog, it can be having a chat with a good friend, it can be being in a bubble bath and reading, a book or listening to a podcast, or just having nothing. It's whatever brings you to yourself. That's, for me, the point of yoga. It's this, the aligning to yourself and the higher, whatever you want to call it, God or universal energy or whatever. That's the point.
Yeah, that's what my teacher actually told us as well. So I'm glad that this is being taught. Oh wow. Actually, when I asked you to record this episode, I did want to speak to you about social media and the usage of social media. And because earlier when we were talking about you being an author, and you said something that you were getting inspiration from other people. And I think it's so similar about living your dream. You can get so much inspiration on social media, but also from my personal experience, that can tip so quickly into depression and just being super envious and not actually feeling like you could do it as well. And I know you were talking about this a couple of weeks ago or something. And what are your observations and thoughts on this?
Oh, I get so easily into that. I do. On one hand, for me, I'm on Instagram mostly, and I really love it that way, because Instagram is what I choose to see. I just follow people that are interesting, unlike some other platforms where it's not quite like that. So it can be incredibly inspiring, for sure. And I'm actually going to start charting this with my menstrual cycle to see if there's a correlation, but there are definitely some points where I feel like I'm in this comparison game, and where I feel like I'm behind, or I'm doing it wrong, or why have they got like so many more followers than I do, or there's this weird kind of this comparison game that can come up sometimes, and I like to think that I use it pretty mindfully, actually. And what I've noticed is that the people who bring this up in me are people who I interact with quite a lot. They're people who I actually look up to quite a lot.
Yeah, you are one of these persons for me as well. It's really funny. It's so crazy. Yeah.
I don't know, just sometimes I see something and it triggers something in me, and whatever it triggers is like, normally it's just like I start to feel envious, and and then I sit and I think about, like, okay, what is it? Like, what is it that I'm feeling envious about? And normally it's that they're doing something that I told myself I wanted to do a long time ago, or something that I'm working towards at the moment. And, and I'm like, oh, but I'm not there yet, and that's not fair. And there's this kind of like feeling of being left behind. And then I've learned to get a grip on myself and to use it in a way that's like, okay, well, what are they doing? How are they doing it? How would I do it differently? Like, use it as a means of motivation instead of a means to make myself feel bad. Because I'm someone who suffers from, trying to do everything all the time. And, like, there's been so many online courses and stuff lately where I've been like, oh, that sounds like such a good course, I'd love to do that. And I'm like, my fingers like hovering on the button to buy it. And then I'm like, no, you don't have time. You have to write a book by January. You're doing your cycle coach training, and it's because I see everyone else doing all this stuff. So I've learned to also just be realistic with where I am. Like, am I actually ready to do this thing yet? No. So there's no need for me to get upset about it or wish that I was further along down the line. It's this thing of always just trusting that you're in your own timing.
Yeah.
You know, just because someone else is there already, or you know, they may be making beautiful pictures because they're on a beautiful beach all the time, and you know, I'm in a village in Bavaria and not like anywhere near a beach or sunshine. You know, it's like,
Feeling you.
and sometimes I just, you know, when I really notice that I'm getting myself into this kind of space, I just come off it. I come off it and I turn off the notifications for those apps, and I have a social media detox for a day or a weekend, or in some cases for a week if I need to. I've done that before. And it's like instant relief. So it's, you know, you can always look at other people and feel bitter or whatever because they're doing what you wish, you know. Or you can look at it and say, okay, you know, it's just like how I did with the books. Like, if they can do it, then I can do it too. And if I'm there and if I'm ready to actually do it, like not just do the thing, but do all the things associated with the thing to actually make it worth doing, then I will either do it or I'll wait until another time. And I write it on my future ideas list and back to it when I have the time.
So what do you say to like making peace with where you're at the moment? Because I know this for myself. So even though I traveled for 6.5 years, and a lot of people saying, "Oh, you're so lucky, you had this lifestyle," but I was actually like, I was half the time I was slightly addicted to drugs, and I had pretty disordered eating, and I often look at this time like that as well, that I was like, oh well, I was traveling but I was a wreck somehow. And so I don't always see it that positive, and I missed some opportunities of connecting with really amazing people along the way. And I still think that because I missed those opportunities with people, I also missed opportunities to grow and to build the life of my dreams. So I still feel sometimes like, yes, I have it really beautiful now. I'm really lucky and I'm really grateful. And there are still also wishes I have for my life. And so social media can trigger this so hard, where you look at the people who are living by the beach and living the life that you're dreaming of. So like, and I know that so many people are out there who think, oh my God, I'm never going to get there, or it's so far away. Or like, how do you even deal with the aspect of struggling to accept where you're at, struggling to accept that maybe you have made some not so good decisions or not so nice, loving decisions for yourself in the past?
Yeah, that's a really tricky one. And I actually spoke to that, I think, a couple of weeks ago in a blog post, because this feeling of regretting past decisions, you know, I really, when I look back in my life, there's like you, there's so many things that I could have done differently. But I'm someone who, I love to look back and see how the decisions that I've made have led to me being where I am. And of course, there's all the things that I've missed out on, absolutely. But there's so many amazing things that have happened as a result. So, you know, you could look at it like, well, I spent so much time being, you know, addicted to things and feeling really bad about myself and everything else. But these are the things that have got you to where you are now. You know, these are the things that you know, are making you powerful as a coach in your own right. So I'm not saying that, you know, everything happens for a reason, because that sounds a little bit trite, but I do think that in those times where you're feeling like, yeah, I think it's just more important to look at, okay, you are where you are. You can't go back and change things. It's not possible. And so you can either use this moment as an opportunity to apply lessons that you've learned from these so-called mistakes or mischances and decide how you want to be going forwards. And I think that that's so much more empowering than kind of, you know, looking back and wishing that things could be different, because you can't change it. And I know it's you know, I do that a lot as well. There's things that I wish hadn't happened the way they happened, or that I would have, you know, done something in a different way. But at the end of the day, for most of us, we make decisions based on the information that we have at the time, and like from the place that we're at, with the resources that we're at, and for so many other reasons. So I think learning to trust that you are where you're supposed to be right now is so important. And when you understand that being where you're supposed to be right now doesn't mean that you have to stay there. It doesn't mean that you have to be here and be unhappy as you are right now. It just means that you're supposed to be here where you are right now, wishing that you would have done things differently so that you can find the drive to actually make that happen. I think that's probably one of the biggest things. And I'm really someone who gets behind making, I don't call it manifesting because I didn't know it as manifesting when I did it, but I knew that I wanted to write a book, and I knew that I wanted to, get myself out of debt and all these kinds of things. And I just wrote down like these wishes that I wanted. And I find that I still do that now. It's a really powerful thing because it's the same as when I said to my mentor, I want to start writing again. It's getting it out and putting it out.
Telling the universe.
Yeah. And sometimes that's all it needs. Sometimes it's just a case of voicing it to another person or to an empty room or in your journal. And then, it's like this admitting what you want. So yeah, it can be hard, but just trusting that you are where you're supposed to be, so that you can then move forward in the way that you want to is a really big thing, I think.
Yeah. Trust is so
not always easy.
Yes.
But that's why it helps me to look back and see, in those times where I felt really bad, or when I wish things could be different, or when I've made these decisions, they've led to me being here. And so I use that as a kind of like, well, it's worked out okay. Of course, it's been really hard in there, but actually it's worked out really well. Look at where I am now. And I use that as a kind of motivation for those times where I feel a bit left behind. And and also with social media as well. It's exactly the same. When I feel like that, I'm looking and I'm saying, well, this is my journey and that's their journey. And one of the biggest things about social media that really changed for me was, I think, everyone, that especially Instagram, it's not real life. I mean, the stories are maybe, but everything else is highly curated, and when I started to get into this world myself, I was just like, I was exhausted by how long it took to make a single picture sometimes when you're on your own and you don't have a photographer there, and you've got your tripod there and you've got your ring light there, and you need to should I have this blank wall behind me, or should I put and then you kind of realize and there was a point where I was thinking, this is so stupid. It's taking me all day to take a picture. I have so many other things to do. And I really realized then that there are people out there who, they have amazing feeds and their life looks amazing, but it's so curated. It's not how they live all the time. And so nowadays, the pictures that I have are, done pretty quickly. I don't really enjoy doing it, but I know that I need to. And so I make it as fun as I can, but I also don't spend that much time on it because I don't want to be responsible for someone else feeling, like their life isn't as good because mine, it's not.
Because your pictures are good.
Exactly. So, it's, and that's why I don't really do any yoga pictures anymore on my Instagram, for example. So I think also having this perspective of being on the other side and seeing that actually it's not like it looks, just it takes a lot of pressure off.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I actually decided for myself to not use filters in stories anymore, and to I put a little bit of filter maybe sometimes over my pictures, but I don't want to have it so fake. And people tell you should have a theme and you should have a feel around your Instagram profile. But then there is actually people who have really ugly Instagram profiles and still make an impact. So I'm just going to be one of those people who has because I love writing my text, I love what I write. And so I will just focus on what I write. And I also really enjoy having this podcast now, because I love having conversations like this with people like you. And yeah, I think it's gonna make its way around either way.
It should just be fun.
Yeah.
Like for me, I do use filters, and I do use filters on my stories because I find them fun. And
Yeah.
and I am also
Makes sense.
someone who I like things to look nice and warm and cozy. And so I decided I want to put a filter on my pictures that are warm and cozy. It's not like, to kind of make it look fake at all. So for me, it was just this kind of, I want things to, it's what I myself would want to look at.
It's true. I think it's a creative expression as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things. It can be a real love-hate relationship, but I think the more that you just focus on yourself and what it is that you're there to do, and to what it is that you're here to do, should I say, the less you start to care about what other people are doing. And in those times when you do care about what other people are doing, you can use that as motivation to see, like, actually, what does it mean that I'm missing? What is it that I wish that I was fulfilling in myself right now? So yeah.
And I want to ask, like, probably a couple of final questions. And this is the longest podcast I've ever. Yeah, I feel like we could keep going for hours here. With you, this was my longest podcast so far. Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, like, there's so much amazing stuff that you have to share, I think, because to me, you're like this what's like just this post-it, or like this show off. I think that's a good I'm German, so I'm just
I know what you mean.
But you are basically a good show off for that it's possible to just live a life that feels good, right? To live a life that you actually want to live, and that you want to get up for in the morning, and that it's, I mean, you were somewhat young as well when you made the change, but I also like to say it's never too late, because I met people who were 60 and they started a yoga teacher training and start to turn their life around a bit more. So I think, and you can hear stories about people of any age just going like, all right, I'm going to do something different now. And I think it's never too late. So yeah, what I want to ask you is, what is fulfilling to you in life at the moment, like right from your perspective where you are?
That's a hard question. Fulfilling life, my boyfriend.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Having a dog has been just so heart opening. He's just the most amazing little.
I mean, you have an amazing dog and an amazing boyfriend. Yes, I can confirm that.
I think it's just, like as I said, for me, like, relationships are just the biggest learning that you can have. And being responsible for someone, obviously Simon and I don't have children. We just have a dog now. And so this kind of experiencing this affection from someone who doesn't want anything from you. They're just, they're just happy when you're there every day. And, it brings a lot of fulfillment for sure. And the fact that I'm writing again actually really, really fills a hole that I didn't really know was there, because it's something that I really love doing, and it's not always easy, but I really enjoy it. And this is a huge sense of fulfillment, I think, just being able to do what is interesting for me. The coaching is hugely fulfilling, because it's just such a real privilege to work with people who, like, really put trust in you. This is such a big thing. So I think my relationships, my work, these are really big fulfillment points. And then there's like so many other smaller things. Music gives me life. Getting out and walking gives me life. Coffee.
Yeah.
There's so many things. But I think in general, just feeling good, feeling like I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do. This gives me a lot of fulfillment. I think when you don't know what your purpose is, and you wake up and you go to a job that you know, it's maybe fun and you maybe have great colleagues and you get paid a lot of money, but it's not lighting you up from inside. Because I think that's for me the definition of soul destroying. And I think that's why so many people on one side have a fear of getting into this kind of Monday to Friday 9 to 5 life, but also are stuck in it as well. So I think when you can figure out what you're here to do and do it, whether it's as a career or just for fun, this is where you get the biggest fulfillment, I think.
Yeah, following your inner voice.
Yeah.
I want to ask another big question. I've been enjoying to ask this to people I'm interviewing. And the question is, put your seatbelt on. Yeah, I like to ask the question, what is your vision for the earth? You know, do you have like a dream for humanity, how we are on the planet? Do you sometimes dream about that as well? Because I do.
Do you know what? If I'm completely honest, I would say I'm not this big, I'm not someone who thinks about the bigger picture all that often.
Wow.
Which I know that it maybe sounds strange for someone who's in the spiritual world.
I think that's actually kind of inspiring because, like, for me, I think sometimes I'm too much out there, and that's can also be distracting and really intimidating.
Right. And I think there are people who, you know, like my boyfriend, he's very, I think it's also maybe with sensitive people, you know, he really cares emphatically about everything, the environment, you know, world hunger, everything. Like if he could be in Greenpeace and Sea Shepherd and RSPCA and Doctors Without Borders and everything, he would do them all at once. And I'm not someone who thinks like that. You know, of course I care about all of these things, but I think for me, I'm much more focused on what I am doing. What am I doing? How am I living? And how is that affecting the people around me? Because, you know, like sometimes I feel like it's all very well to kind of have these big ideas about the world, but actually it's really hard to change the whole world. It's much easier to change your world and the world around you. And, you know, it's, so my vision is that people are able to figure out what they're here to do. Once you do that, you find a sense of fulfillment. Once you find a sense of fulfillment, you feel happier within yourself. You feel more secure within yourself. You're less likely to hurt other people because, you know, you just grow a sense of compassion. And I feel like these are things that can ripple out, you know. So I think for me, I dream of a world where everybody would feel secure in themselves, know what they're here to do, and be able to influence the people around them to do the same thing. And that to me would change the world in such a quicker way than trying to change the world.
Yes. Yeah. Change yourself.
Yeah. So change yourself. And for sure, now that I've, since the last like 3 or 4 years when I stopped taking the pill, this whole journey has just led me to, you know, for me, the future world has to be different for women. I'm, you know, for sure, I'm someone who is so grateful for all the feminism that there was in the 60s and the 70s, but I do feel like there's now this kind of wave of change where women are realizing, and people who bleed are realizing that actually we are not the same as men, and some of us don't want to be the same as men. So like we need to live in a world that is conscious of the needs of someone who bleeds and all of the things that go with that. And so this is something that I'm so passionate about now, and I wish that every woman, every girl, every guy even would really understand what it means to be someone who bleeds and how that affects how you work, how you dress, how you do everything. Because then I just feel like, you know, we would, the next generation would just also be so much more secure in themselves. And yeah, so these two things I think at the moment are the the biggest things that I would say I have in my vision for future.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there's so much wisdom in the women's cycle. Oh. Yeah, we record another episode about that.
I love it. I get talking about it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Oh, wow. That was such a beautiful time with you. Is there anything else that you wanted to say here?
I don't think so. Just, there's a quote by Jeff Foster, and it really always sticks by me. And I first came across it like years ago.
Oh, I love Jeff Foster.
Yeah. And he says, we keep trying to get there when here is all there really is.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think this understanding that you are here, you're listening to this podcast for a reason, you're in this place where you are right now for a reason, even if you're somewhere really hard, where you're struggling physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, whatever, it's for something. It's to help wake you up. And I think that just having trust that you are where you're supposed to be, and that's just such a life affirming thing. So yeah, that's all that I would say.
Yeah,
Trust
thank
it and then
you.
use it.
Thank you. All we have is now.
Yeah.
So thank you, Nat. I will call you like this from now. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I will put the in the description box the link to your website, Instagram, and you mentioned a blog post earlier that we can link for people to check you out. And yeah, I just thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's been beautiful.
You're welcome.